Namo Buddhaya. Welcome everyone to another video. So today, let's talk about loneliness and how we can face this situation. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about two things. And the first one is the loneliness, and the second one is the solitude, which is more reframed version of being alone. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about loneliness. When we are around people, when we are living with people, and when we are in relationships with people, normally we feel happy. We feel that we are content, right? And we feel this joyfulness within ourselves. But when they are not around us, or when they leave us, sometimes when we have to depart from them, normally we feel depressed, sad, or lonely, or we feel like no one cares about us. So this is the feeling of loneliness. If we analyze this emotion of loneliness, we can find that we have become happy because of the people around us, because of their reaction, because of their way of behavior. That was the reason that we became happy. Simply it means that we have given the key of our own happiness to other people. So when they leave our life, sometimes when they depart from ourselves, sometimes when they fade away from our life, what happens to us is we become unhappy. We become sad, we become depressed, and we feel like no one is caring for us. There is no one to help for me. That is what we are thinking. So how we can deal with this? Well, that is where we come to the topic of solitude. Supreme Buddha advised us, Supreme Buddha advised the monks to practice this practice of being solitude. So what do you mean by solitude? So first of all, let's compare the loneliness to the solitude. Then you can take some idea about that. In loneliness, when you're lonely, you're thinking for someone to come to your life and make you happy. That means you're depending on others. Your happiness depends on others. But in solitude, you try to find the happiness within yourself. When you find the happiness inside yourself, you don't want to depend on another person. You don't want to depend on second person. You can find your happiness within yourself. And that is what the practice of solitude gives us. So when you are being solitude, or simply when you are being alone, now there are the people talk about this like the loneliness and being alone is two different things, right? So when you're being alone or when you're being in solitude, you're happy. You're not finding the happiness from these outer sources. You find the happiness within yourself. So Buddha teaches us to look at this loneliness not as something to be sad, not as something negative. Buddha teaches us to look at this loneliness something that is beneficial for you, something that is positive. So how we can use this loneliness, or how we can reframe this loneliness to be positive? Well, if you think about whenever you are being alone, you have more time for yourself, right? You have a bigger freedom for yourself. You can think about yourself. You can reflect more about yourself, and you can practice meditations, or you can think about your health and do some practices about that. You can do some self-development techniques, so you can improve yourself. So when you use that time, when you use that loneliness for good things, then you become more positive about that. Then you will never feel these sad or depressing states. So let me tell you a little story how Buddha felt lonely at one time. Actually, this incident happened to the Buddha before he became enlightened. We call him the Bodhisattva. When he was Bodhisattva, he was practicing this self-mortification for 6 years. He gave lots of hardships to this body. He did some extreme meditations in the jungle. So there were 5 monks who were helping the Bodhisattva. So he practiced this self-mortification meditation for 6 years and he mastered that. Finally, he came to the conclusion of that I cannot achieve this enlightenment by self-mortificating or by giving this extreme hardship to this body. So he decided to find this middle way. So what he did was, first of all, he took his bowl and he went to the village and he got some foods to eat. Because he thought that to do the meditations, I need to have this physical energy. But those 5 monks who were helping to Bodhisattva, who were expecting the enlightenment from the Bodhisattva through this self-mortification, was so confused because they saw that the Bodhisattva is having these foods. Then those 5 monks thought, like, now he's not going to achieve this enlightenment. The enlightenment can only be achieved by this self-mortification. So they never believed on the Bodhisattva. So what they did was, they left the Bodhisattva. Now our Maha Bodhisattva was all alone in the middle of the jungle. There was no one to help him. There was no one to care about him. No one knew about him. He was all alone. But he didn't think about that loneliness as something depressed or something negative. So he thought, now I have more time for myself. I can do my meditations freely. There was no one to think about me. So I must use this time for my self-development. That is what Maha Bodhisattva thought. So that is the way that we also should think about this loneliness. If you are feeling lonely, if you are having some kind of a loneliness situations in your life, use that time, use that valuable time to create a better life for yourself. Because you have more time. You can do meditations. You can stick into a daily routine of the self-development. You can do meditations. You can do workouts. You can walk for some time. And you can be with this nature, read a book, or learn something new, practice meditations, do exercises. These things can be done when you are all alone. So, rather than feeling depressed about the situations that you are in, why can't we become more happy about the time that we are spending alone, right? So practice this, okay? So if people comes to your life, let them come. If people walks away from your life, let them walk away. But you have to be by yourself. You have to think about yourself. That is what you have to think, and that is what you have to do in this valuable time. So I think you got some idea about the loneliness and being in the solitude. So practice the solitude and make your life more better. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to yet another episode in Inner Guide Q&A program. Now I need to ask a question from you. When was the last time you had a sound sleep and after you wake up, you felt so good? I think most of the time we don't get a good sleep, and that is why we are feeling tired after a good sleep even. So today we're going to talk about how to wake up in the morning without feeling tired. Now remember, the quality of your wake up is highly dependent on how you sleep, the quality of your sleep. So first of all, let's talk about how to have a better sleep. Our great teacher, Supreme Buddha, taught us that if you can practice the love and the kindness throughout your life, in your heart, practically, you will sleep better. Right? So it says that it is so important to maintain a kind and a calm and a peaceful heart to have a better sleep. So your sleep is highly affected by several things. It depends on what you do during the day, and it depends on how you approach the bed, your sleeping posture, and also it depends on what you do after you wake up. So we are going to talk about these things. So let's talk about how the things happen during the day affects our sleep. Now, if you spend most of the time in the day by being angry with people, by being jealous of others, by fighting with others and being sad and frustrated, then your mentality is not in a good condition. And then when you go to the bed, you will never have a peaceful sleep because your mind and your body is not ready for that and it hasn't become peaceful. So it is so important to maintain a peaceful and a calm mind during the day. Right? Of course, we cannot control the situations that we face during the day. We cannot control people complaining us, criticizing us, bullying us. We cannot control these things, but we can control our response to them. Right? So we, by our own self, make the choice to be angry, to be jealous, to be frustrated, to blame. So, what you have to do, you need to maintain and you need to try as much as possible to be kind and to be friendly with people, right? To help others, to do the good things, which makes you happy within. So if you can maintain a peaceful heart and peaceful mind during the day, even in the middle of the adversities and the problems, then no one can control and no one can destroy your peacefulness. So when you approach the bed and when you go to the sleep, you're going with a kind and a peaceful heart. So your sleep quality will be increased. And also the sleep is highly dependent on how you approach the bed. Right? So in brief, I must say, approach the bed with a clean body and a clean mind. Right? So how we approach the bed with a clean body? Refresh your body before you are going to sleep. Don't go to sleep with dust-filled bodies and sweat-filled bodies. Right? You can have a little bit of a shower. If it was a cold shower, it is much better. But if you cannot have a cold shower, if you are not in a condition of having a cold shower, then have a lukewarm shower. Right? Then you go to the bed. And when you go to the bed, it is much more important to clean your mind. So how to do that? And that's where the meditation comes in. Right? You can bring in a meditation before you sleep. So it is so easy to practice a session or 5-minute session of loving kindness meditation. Right? You can spread the love and kindness towards yourself first, and you can spread the same love and kindness to your family members, to your neighbors, to your people around your village, maybe the people in your town, and you can spread the love and kindness to the whole world. When you spread the thoughts and when you generate these thoughts within your mind gets so peaceful and it will become so serene. So bring in a loving kindness meditation before you sleep, right? And then you can go to the sleep with a clean body and a clean mind. And also, The quality of your sleep is highly dependent on your sleeping posture, right? Most of the people, they sleep on their stomach. They sleep facing down. But that is not a good posture to sleep. Our great teacher, Supreme Buddha, can sleep to the right side, and that posture is called Singhasaya, the lion's posture, which was used by our great teacher Supreme Buddha throughout his whole life. So if you can try that posture, that is one of the best postures to sleep. And also you can sleep to the left side, right? So these postures will increase your quality of the sleep, right? So these things affects your sleep in many ways, and it makes a huge impact. And then let's talk about what we should do after we wake up. Now, I need to share with you some tips which you can practice soon after you wake up, right? So first of all, do not do this. Do not hit the snooze button. Now, many of you hit the snooze button and you go back to the sleep. Remember, when you hit the snooze button and when you go to the sleep again, that sleep is not a perfect sleep, right? And that is why you are feeling tired after you wake up. So what you have to do, don't hit the snooze button. Wake up and get down from the bed soon after you wake up, right? So you can keep your alarm clock, maybe your mobile phone, you can set the alarm and you can keep that thing across your room in a distance where you should walk to the alarm clock and stop it. So it will help you to get down from the bed. So that is one tip. And the next one is drink some water soon after you wake up. You can keep a glass of water near your alarm clock. Then you can stop the alarm and have a drink of water, right? And then it's better to have a little bit of a shower in the morning. If it is a cold shower, it is much better. But if you cannot have a cold shower, then go for a lukewarm shower and you will feel so refreshed in the morning. And after that, do some exercises, have some stretches on your body, then you're good to go, right? So these things, if you can do these things soon after you wake up, it will keep up the refreshness that you feel in the morning throughout the day. So that is how we have a peaceful wake up early in the morning and feel refreshed. So I hope you enjoy this video. And I wish you all, may all of you be well and happy, and may all of you live long, and may all of you realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautam Buddha's dispensation. Namo Buddhaya, Theruvan Saranai. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to talk about something really important for all of our lives, especially in these days, and that is the things that we should not speak with others, according to Buddha's teachings. Now, at first, you might be thinking, well, I'm not a Buddhist, so why should I care about these things? Here's the thing. These principles can be applied to anyone's life, regardless of their religion or belief system. So that is why these speeches are called Four Unwholesome Speeches. That is what Buddha said about these speeches. Four unwholesome speeches. So without any further ado, let's dive in. First of all, we have lying. Now Buddha said, stay away from lying. Now I know we all have said white lies here and there in all of our lives, right? But whether it is a white lie, whether it is a black lie, gray lie, or a red lie, no matter what the lie is, lying itself can be so harmful for all of our lives. Why is that? When you lie, it destroys your trust. When you lie, it destroys your character, right? So that is why it is very important to have trust between people. In our daily relationships between people, the most important component of a happy relationship is the trust. So that is why Buddha said, live a truthful life. And it is very important to have that transparency and honesty in our relationships. So the first thing that we have to stay away from is lying. And next we have divisive speech. What do you mean by divisive speech? Divisive speech is all about creating drama between people or creating conflicts between people using your words, right? It can be gossiping or it can be talking behind someone's back, right? I must say that when you talk these words or when you use this divisive speech, it is not a good thing for your life. And also it is not a good thing for other people's relationships. So Buddha said, do not use this divisive speech. Do not break the relationships between people using your words. Most of the time, we use the divisive speech out of jealousy or out of anger. So that is why it's very important to stay away from divisive speech. And the third one is, Buddha said, stay away from harsh speech. Now, when someone is calling you or when someone is treating you with rude words, how do you feel? Now, we all have been in this receiving end of such speeches, no? How did you feel? We felt sad, we felt depressed, we felt down about ourselves. So that is why Buddha said, do not use your words to put someone down, right? Do not use your words out of anger. This is all about criticizing and name calling and putting someone else down with your words, right? So Buddha said, stay away from harsh speech. And finally, Buddha said, stay away from idle chatter. What do you mean by idle chatter? Idle chatter is all about speaking meaningless or useless things, right? Now, that doesn't say that we cannot have a small chat or a fun talk with people. We can do that, but we have to know where our limit is in our speech, right? We have to set the boundaries in our speech, right? We have to know where our speech become unproductive, right? When you use these words, when you use your words in a meaningful way, you can create a positive life. And you can create a positive emotions or positive feelings in others' lives too, right? So these are the 4 unwholesome speeches that we have to stay away from, that our great teacher Supreme Buddha taught us according to the Buddha's teachings, right? So why all these things matter? Why these unwholesome speeches matter in our life? Well, Buddha said, the words that we speak can create either positive or negative karma in our life. Do not think lightly about this karma, right? You have to be very careful about the karma. So the intention behind your words really matters in your life. And that is why we have to use our words wisely, because it can make a huge impact in our lives as well as in others' lives too. So words that we speak are like a knife, right? You can use the knife to cut something useful, right? And also you can use the knife to kill someone else. So let's use our words to create a better life for ourselves and for others. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you got some food for thought for your life. So until next time, I wish you all, may all of you be well and happy, and may all of you live in peace forever. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to yet another episode in Inner Guide Q&A program. Now it's been a long time that we haven't done a Q&A session. So today we are going to answer one of your questions. Someone has mentioned in the comments that it said that what to do when the life is becoming unfair, and what to do when life is not going in my way. Well, we are going to talk about this today. First of all, remember the nature of our life. What is the nature of our life? Life is a little bit unfair. That is the real nature. But the problem is, we expect that everything in our life to be perfect and to be fair. That is the problem. That is where the real problem is. Because Buddha said, if you have expectations, if you have more and more expectations inside yourself, chances are very high for you to feel so stressed. So remember that expectations stands for suffering. If you expect the life to be fair, you will suffer, right? So the nature of our life is, it is a little bit unfair. So how to face such situations, how to face unfair situations in our life? Well, I want you to do 3 things when you face tough situations in your life, right? These are very simple, but yet when you practice it, it is very hard to do that, but you can achieve it. Number 1, first of all, you need to realize what the situation is. That is the first thing that you have to do. If you're going through a hard time, right, you need to analyze about that and see what the problem is. Well, there are 2 types of situations in our life. What is that? First type of situation is the situations which are in our control. Experiences which can be changed by ourselves, right? And the second type of situation is the situations which are out of our control. We cannot do many things about that situation, right? So these are the 2 types of situations that we go through in our life. So first of all, you need to analyze and you need to see what the problem is, whether it is in my control or out of my control. Right? When you realize about the situation, then you can do something about that situation. Okay? That is the first thing you have to do. Analyze the situation. Number 2, if it is a situation that is in your control, just do something to change that situation. So, what are the things that are in our control? What are the situations and experiences that we face in our life and which are in our control? Well, if you face a bad time, if you face a stressful situation because of your own faults, because of a mistake that is within yourself, then you can change it. Because we own our mistakes. We are the owners of our mistakes, and the mistakes can only be changed by ourselves. No one can change that. Someone can advise you, someone can show you the path, but no one can make it correct than you. So, what you have to do, you have to change the situation. If it is your mistake, correct it. If it is your fault, then do something about it to change that situation. So these are the things that are in our control. Remember. Here's the third one. When we face the situations that are out of our control, how to face that situation? Well, these are the situations we spend most of our time trying to change that, but we cannot do anything about that situation. So what are the situations which are out of our control? There are many things, right? Criticism is out of your control. People's opinions, they are out of our control. How people behave in front of you is totally out of your control. They are their choices, not your own choice. But we try to change these situations and we become so sad and depressed trying to change, and we find that we cannot change this situation. So if you cannot change the situation, what you have to do? You have to change your perspective about the situation, right? You can change the perspective about the situation, because the perspective and the way you see that about that situation is totally in your control. Because your thoughts are in your control, right? So what you need to do is, if you cannot change the situation, change the perspective, change the way you see about that situation. Okay? So remember, when people act weird in front of you, when people try to make you angry, when people criticize you, right? When people give unwanted opinions about you, just think, these things are out of my control. I should not waste my time of my life to change these situations. It is much better to change my perspective about this situation. So how can you change the situation? How can you change the perspective? You can be kind to them, right? You can maintain a positive mindset inside you, right? It is much better to maintain a positive mindset daily, every day, right? Listen to some things like positive things, positive words every day. It is much better to do that, because the more you listen to the positive words, positive ideas, right? Then the more you become positive inside, right? Then you can change your perspective about the situation. That is what you can do. Always remember what Buddha said. It is a nice quote that Buddha said that describes about the life. Buddha said, "Achinti tampi bhavati, chinti tampi vinasati." That is one of the greatest and one of the nicest quotes that Buddha have told about the life. In life, Buddha said, "Achinti tampi bhavati." Most of the times, unexpected things happen. Isn't that true? We don't know what will happen in the next time, right? It is a mystery. So in life, always unexpected things happen. And the things that we expected will going to be destroyed, right? If we expect something, we don't get the same thing. That is the thing. So remember that quote that was said by the Buddha. Achinti tampi bhavati, chinti tampi vinasati. Right? And there's another quote that was said by the Buddha. Sadharanang vihanyanti. If you expect the life to be fair, chances are more that for you to suffer in your life. So live with less expectations, right? If you're going through a tough situation, just analyze the situation, realize about the situation, and if you can change the situation, do something about it. If you cannot do something about the situation, change your perspective. That is what you can do when the life is not going in your way. So make your life a peaceful one with the teaching. Namo Buddhaya. A king wanted to write down a quote on his sword to not to be too much happy when he wins and to not to be too much sad when he loses. Now this king found out that his mind gets too much obsessed when he wins and his mind gets too much obsessed when he defeats. So he gave this job to write down a quote on his sword to his mentor. So the mentor thought for a while and he simply wrote down these amazing 4 words on his sword. It said, "This too shall pass." I'll repeat it again. This too shall pass. See, when we live in this world, there are worldly conditions that we have to experience in this world. The Buddha named these worldly conditions as 8 worldly conditions, Atta Loka Dhamma. In Dutiya Loka Dhamma Sutta, the Buddha explains this, that because the whole world revolves around 8 worldly conditions. And the 8 worldly conditions revolves around this world. What are these 8 worldly conditions? The Buddha explains that gain and loss is a worldly condition. And praise and blame is a worldly condition. And fame and disgrace is a worldly condition. And pleasure and pain is a worldly condition. So these are the worldly conditions that we go through and we experience in all of our lives. Now the problem is not having to go through these all worldly conditions. The problem behind this is our minds get too much obsessed with these worldly conditions. When we win, our minds get too much attached to it, and we forget that this victory won't last forever. And when we lose and when we defeat, when we fall down, our minds get too much obsessed with that defeat, and we think that this defeat, this sadness, this suffering will last forever. But in reality, all good things come to an end, and as well as all bad things come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. So how can we live by not being attached to this winning and losing, and not being attached to any kind of these worldly conditions? Now Buddha shows us the way to not to be attached to any kind of these things. The way to do that is to simply understand the nature of all these conditions. What is the nature? The nature of all the worldly conditions is they are subjected to change. Right? When you win, it is subjected to change. When you lose, it is subjected to change. And it is impermanent. Simply, you can remind it to yourself that this too shall pass. Okay? When you hit the rock bottom, when you go through problems, when you go through difficulties in your life, just remember to yourself that this too shall pass. This pain, this suffering too shall pass. And when you win, and when you're happy, and when everyone cheers for you around you, always remember to yourself that this is not going to last forever. This too shall pass. That is one of my favorite quotes that I read recently. It says, when you win, you are not good as you think you are. And when you lose, you are not bad as you think you are. So when you win, everyone will cheer to you, everyone will congratulate you, everyone will say good things about you, but always remember, you are a man. You are a human. You are imperfect. And everything is subjected to change. Now, this does not say that you should not enjoy winning. You should not enjoy victory. You can enjoy victory. You can be happy about it. But simply understand this winning, this victory won't last forever. And when you lose, you have to remember to yourself that you are not bad as you think you are. You can learn from your mistakes, you can learn from your fails, and you can always improve yourself and always think that this is not going to last forever. This pain is not going to last forever. By simply understanding that everything is subjected to change, nothing is permanent in life, will help you to achieve a happier and more fulfilling life by not being attached to any kind of these extremes. When you win, do not be too much attached to it. And when you lose, do not be too much attached to it. Then you will be happy.
Imagine you're having a rough day and you're scrolling through social media. And you see these nice pictures, people are celebrating their life, having the best days in their life, celebrating and becoming happy. When you see these pictures, what do you feel inside? Sometimes we feel even more stressed and we feel like there's no value in our life. One of the biggest enemies of our happiness is comparing our life with others' lives. There is some sort of jealousy and envy that builds up in our life, in our mind. That is why becoming envious and jealousy and comparing our lives to others is one of the biggest enemies of our happiness. To overcome this, the Buddha introduced a special practice, and that is called mudita. Mudita means appreciative joyfulness. Always remember, when we compare our lives to others, and when you build up that jealousy and envy within yourself, it is not going to help in your success, in your life, right? Sometimes, like we stop in a certain place, okay? We hold on to one emotion and we stay in that envy and jealousy and thinking about other people's lives without making our life successful, without focusing on our life. So the Buddha said, when you see these successful people in the society, when people around you living the best days in their life and your life is not having such experience, always look up to them and think and wish the happiness of them. Okay? That is called appreciative joyfulness. Wish the happiness of beings around you, even though you are going through a tough time. When we see successful people, we should not be jealous at them. It is not going to help us. What we have to do, we have to wish the success on them. When you see someone is having the best days in their life, think of him and say, oh, may he be happy even more. May he have a prosperous and a happy life forever. If you do that, you're not going to give the space for that envy and unhappiness and that negativity in your mind. The more you practice this positive mindset, the more you practice this appreciative joyfulness, you can be happy about yourself. Even on the hard days, even though your life is in a tough place. So that is why whenever we see successful people, people having a happy life, we have to wish the happiness of them. That is called mudita. So when we practice this simple Buddhist practice of mudita or appreciative joyfulness, we can be happy about our life and also we can be peaceful within.
If there is one thing in common in this world that all living beings search for, that is the happiness. We all like to be happy. We all seek happiness in this world. If I ask from you, would you like to be happy in your life? What will be your answer? You will say, of course, I want to be happy in my life. I want this peaceful state. I need to be in that. That is your answer. That is the answer of all living beings. Buddha says that all living beings likes to be happy and they seek the happiness. If you really think about our life, we are in a never-ending journey of pursuing happiness. Let me tell that again. We are in a never-ending journey of pursuing happiness. That means we are pursuing happiness, we are chasing and we are seeking for happiness, but yet we have not found it. So, what is the reason for this not finding happiness? Why we don't find happiness in our life? We are seeking it, we are finding for it, but we don't find it. What is the reason? Well, the Buddha teaches us that we are finding or we are seeking this happiness from a source that the happiness does not exist. Because we are seeking happiness from external world. We are seeking happiness from these materialistic things. Well, when you seek happiness from materialistic things or external world, you get pleasure, but that is not happiness. Pleasure is something temporary and it gives you this instant gratification. But in happiness, the happiness is long-lasting and it gives you this happiness or the contentment about yourself. So that is why Buddha teaches us that you're finding the happiness from a source where the happiness does not exist. So the more you find it, the more you become frustrated. So, will we ever be able to find happiness in our life? The Buddha answers this question. He says, yes, you can find happiness in your life. How to do that? If you look closely to the first and the second verses of Dhammapada, Buddha says, if one with an impure mind speaks or acts, the suffering will follow him like a cartwheel following the ox. If with an impure mind one speaks or acts, the suffering will follow him. And in the next verse, Buddha says, if with a pure mind one speaks or acts, the happiness will follow him like a shadow following a man. So that means the happiness and the sadness entirely depends on the purity and the impurity of our mind. When our mind is pure, we can find the happiness. So, how can we gain this purity in our mind in order to find the happiness? Well, Buddha teaches us there are a lot of things that you can do to make your mind pure. So today, I'm going to share with you a few things that can give you the happiness in your life, that you can find the happiness in your life. First thing, accepting the reality of life will give you the happiness. You know, life is full of ups and downs. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes we have bad days, sometimes we have beautiful memories, sometimes we also have miserable memories. So life is not something that is going equally every day. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. When you realize this reality, you can face these situations successfully, right? It is not always this bad experience makes us frustrated. It is our reaction towards this bad experience makes us frustrated. Whenever you get a bad experience or a bad day or a bad situation, tough situation, difficult situation, you have two choices. Either you can focus on the pain and feel miserable about that situation, or you can focus on the lesson that bad situation teaches us and learn from it and start growing your life. So, if you accept the reality of life, it is not temporary. Sometimes the people around us are not in our control. We cannot control their reactions. We cannot control their opinions. So when you realize these situations, you can face those situations successfully. That is one thing, accepting reality of the life. Number two, Buddha said, be generous. Practicing generosity is a major practice in Buddhism. Well, in Buddhism, the generosity is known as dana. In dana, Buddha says that you have to give without any expectations. We have to give and we have to dedicate towards others without expecting anything in return. That is one thing that we have to practice. Most of the time, we like to hold on to things or gather the things towards us. That is what people think. When you gather more, when you collect more things, you will get rich and you will gain happiness. But that does not give you the happiness. It will give you the pleasure, but it is temporary. So what we have to do, Buddha says, be generous, give, help others, dedicate a part of your life on behalf of others. When you do that, when you become more generous, let's say like this, you gave some foods to a poor person, let's say like that. When you see that person is having those foods and overcoming his hunger and making his life much better, you can be happy by seeing that. When you become happy like that, you feel happy about yourself, right? Nothing can give you that happiness. Like by eating a good food, by dressing a nice dress, you cannot gain that happiness. You don't feel happy about yourself. Right? Let's say after hundred of years later, maybe 10 decades later, when you think about that incident, I gave this food to this poor person. When you remind that, you feel happy. Even then you feel happy. That means happiness is long-lasting. So Buddha says, be generous, help people, do something nice every day for a person. That is one thing we can do. And number 3, forgiving. Forgiving is one of the most important things that we can do to create happiness in our life. We have to forgive ourselves. Also, we have to forgive others too. Because forgiving, when you forgive, it doesn't mean that you are saying okay to others' mistakes. It's okay. No, you're not saying like that. When you forgive, you make your heart free. So when you forgive, it's not for that person, it is for you. And also we have to forgive for ourselves. There are so many mistakes that we all have done in the past. If you hold on to past, and if you make this present moment miserable, that will not give you the happiness. So what do we have to do? Whatever the bad thing that we have done in the past, we have to have this ability to forgive ourselves and start all over again. We all have that ability, right? We all have that privilege to start our life again and make it a better one. Okay? So no one is perfect in this world. We all have done mistakes. One thing that we have to do is to forgive and start doing good things. So these are 5 things that we can do to create happiness in our life. And also, there is one happiness that is called the ultimate happiness in this world that the Buddha teaches us. That is called Nibbana or Nirvana. That is the enlightenment. When you realize about the reality of this life, and when you remove this desire or the craving that arises within your mind, then Buddha says that is the ultimate happiness. Simply, the Nibbana means Ragakkayo, Dosakkayo, Mohakkayo, Nibbana. That means removing of the desire, anger, and the delusion of the mind is called the enlightenment. So that is the highest level of happiness that we all can reach. So when you practice these practices, right, when you engage yourself in wholesome state, that will create you the happiness in the life. So practice these things and make your life a happier one. Namo Buddhaya. One of the questions that people ask from me is that they ask, is it easy being a monk? Well, I give them the answer, no, it's not easy, right? So many people think that after becoming a monk, all the problems will disappear like you're floating on a peaceful cloud, Trust me, it doesn't happen, right? Monk's life is difficult, as same as any other life, right? It is not easy because if you look at our life, right, where no matter what the life is, right, no matter what level of life is, there will always be difficulties, problems, challenges. That is the nature of life. That is what the Buddha said to us. The Buddha said that is the first noble truth. What is it? Dukkha. Where there is birth, there is dukkha. There is this unsatisfied nature. There is this suffering. There is this nature of unsatisfaction, dissatisfaction. So you may think, if you're thinking that after becoming a monk, all the problems will disappear. It's not. It doesn't happen, right? But here's the thing. Yes, there is some part of the problems that you face as a householder. After becoming a monk, they will disappear, right? That is made from this lifestyle itself, right? For an example, as a householder, you have to maintain a family life, right? A family. So that part is not there in the monk's life. And as a householder, you have to have these relationships. You have to have your husband or wife, children. As a monk, you don't have them, right? And also, then as a householder, you will get invited to a lot of occasions, parties, weddings, and all the stuff. As monks, we don't go to the weddings and parties, right? So we live in the monastery. So those kind of problems, those kind of things, they will be removed by the lifestyle itself. But that doesn't mean the lifestyle becomes this monk's life is easier. Because we also have some other duties to do, right? We have also other responsibilities to do. After doing all of those things, there are the things that are easier to do actually. At the end of the day, after becoming a monk, what you're really focusing on is your spirituality, your mind. A monk is someone who is totally dedicated to the spiritual practice, his own spiritual practice, and also the spirituality and the spiritual development of the people around him. So when you work on that, right, you will face a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, One of the biggest challenges that we face as monks is to discipline our mind, right? As soon as you become a monk, your mind is not ready to become a monk, okay? I always say this for people, that it takes very few minutes to make a monk physically, like become a monk physically. But it takes a lifelong practice to become a monk within, from the mind, okay? So we are on the path of making our mind a monk, okay? So understand that becoming a monk is not easy, okay? Same as any other life. They will have problems. They will have difficulties, right? And also, I would like to say, yes, monk's life is difficult, but monk's life is beautiful. Why do I say difficult? Because there are some difficulties, challenges that you face as any other life. That is one part, okay? And why would I say that monk's life is beautiful is that the lifestyle is made your life to be so much simple. For an example, we don't have much clothes, right? We only have 3 robes to wear. And also we don't have many things that as materials. For an example, we have only 3 robes and we have only 1 alms bowl and also a couple of books that we are using. And all the other utensils that we use in the monastery are they are for the monastery, right? When we leave the monastery, we have to leave them behind and you have to go. The only thing that remains with you that you consider as yours, your materials, is your 3 robes and some couple of books and also your alms bowl. That is the only thing that is remain. So the lifestyle is made to make your life so much simpler, okay? And the practices that we do, the monastic practices that we do, is made to make your life so much simpler and easier. And the precepts that we follow, that was given by the Buddha, the codes that we follow, is made to make the monk's life so much simpler, hassle-free, and more focused into the spirituality. So yes, there is one part of the beautiful part of the monk's life. Okay, that is beautiful. And the other part that I love to enjoy in monk's life is that being a monk, you get the opportunity to meet so many people, right? Being a preaching monk, I get this opportunity. I'm very lucky to have this in my life. I get to meet a lot of people. I get to meet a lot of people and I get to talk with them. Right? I can listen to their ideas. I can listen to their problems. I can share the Buddha's teachings with them and help them. And when I share the Buddha's teachings with them and when they get the help, it gives me a great happiness, right? So that part I love to enjoy. Okay? And also another beautiful thing that you find in monk's life is that every single morning when you wake up, you have something wholesome to do. Something that is selfless to do, right? When you wake up and when you clean your monastery, when you do the monastic chores, it gives you that idea that yes, you're doing something for yourself as well as the others also. So these are the parts that we enjoy as monks, okay? And also one part, this is not only separated for monks' life, but also anyone can do that. We enjoy by listening and learning the Buddha's teachings, okay? You get a lot of time to learn the Buddha's teachings and observe and analyze the Buddha's teachings and practice the Buddha's teachings. So these are the beautiful parts of the monk's life. So don't think that monk's life is easy and hassle-free and problemless. No, as any other life, we also have problems, but we are working through them, right? We are practicing our mind to make our mind strong enough to face these problems, face these challenges through the Buddha's teachings. So I hope you got some idea about monk's life. So I wish you, may you be happy and may you be healthy.